All right, welcome everyone to this virtual coffee chat with Jessica Jackley on the Social Entrepreneurship Journey. On behalf of Philanthropy University, we are very honored and excited to be hosting you, Jessica, on this Google Hangout.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. I'm really excited about this.
Great. As a co-founder of Kiva, you obviously have an impressive entrepreneurship journey. One second, having a little delay there. Is it okay? Obviously, your work with Kiva, you have an impressive and tremendous background, inspiring background in the social sector. And I'll let you brag a little bit about yourself as well as introduce our participants in a bit. But I did want to extend a welcome and greeting to everyone joining out there in YouTube. We saw sort of your energy and comments and countdowns leading up to this Google Hangout. And we're excited to actually invite you guys to put in some of your questions in the YouTube box, and we're going to spend some time at the end of this conversation so that Jessica can answer some of those questions.
Ben, just so you know, I actually was worried that echo was from me, so I had the YouTube window open to see the comments myself, and I just closed it. So I'll defer to you on what.
We're all good. And then for those of us joining on Twitter, we'll actually be live tweeting this event. We have a hashtag, Socient with Jessica. That's SOCENT with Jessica. So you can find us on Twitter. So I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Ben Aliswag, and this Hangout is part of our Philanthropy University program. So in partnership with UC Berkeley, we're offering 7 free online courses for the social sector. And for those learners who do complete those 7, they will be given a certificate in social sector leadership from Philanthropy University and UC Berkeley. So Jessica's course is one of those 7 courses. Hers is on Global Social Entrepreneurship. And if you'd like to hear more information about the others, you can check it out at philanthropyu.org. So let's get straight to the introductions. We have folks joining in from across the world today, and I want them to sort of tell us their name, where they're dialing in from, and why they're excited about this discussion. So we can start with Kat. How about Kat?
Sure. Hi, my name is Kat Bowser. I am calling in from New York, New York in the United States, and I'm personally very interested in microfinance and microlending, and I know that's a lot of what Kiva does, so I just wanted to hear from Jessica and learn more about how it got started and the work that they're doing.
Excellent. What about Juan?
Hello everyone, my name is Juan. I'm from Colombia. I'm a current engineering systems engineer, and I'm doing my own startup on making random acts of kindness. I'm very excited about learning the basics and fundamentals to build my own startup, and thank you everyone for doing this possible.
Great. What about Peter?
I'm Peter Lorenzi. I'm from Loyola University in Maryland, in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm excited about this because I teach undergraduate and graduate business students about social entrepreneurship and leadership. I've been very inspired by Jessica's talks and by her work. I'm a big contributor to Kiva and find that to be a wonderful way to express student interest. And I'm looking for more ideas about how to enhance my classroom.
And then Roger.
Hi, yeah, so I'm very interested because I have my own startup really focusing on dual language learning for kids 0 to 6. And what I'm finding is when I'm looking at these broader market opportunities going beyond the United States, that the communities need not just access to education, but access to a broader set of things, microfinance being one of them, access to clean water and food. And so I wanted to hear a little bit more about how do you bring all those things into the picture so that kids can really have their lives improved.
Well, thank you guys again for joining and for the introductions, and we're excited to get you in this heated discussion. I'm going to let Jessica introduce herself, and then after that, I did want to just start off with a question right away, Jessica. This session is on the Global Social Entrepreneurship Journey. And so, I think it would be really helpful as context if you can tell us a little bit about your own journey. I know you talk about it in your course, and as a sort of sneak peek as to to the course, let us know how you got into the social sector space and how it's sort of like evolved between now and then.
Sounds great. And I had myself on mute, but welcome and nice to meet all of you that are here, and hello to everybody watching that can't interact with directly right now, but I'm so glad you're out there. And I'm so excited to be teaching this course. I feel incredibly honored, and I'm going to do my very best to make it a great experience for everybody. So my own journey, all good? Sorry, just heard a little squeak. I didn't know if someone was asking something. Oh, did we just get a new person? Should we have?
Yeah, let's do an introduction.
Pause. Oh yeah, don't you want to? I want to meet this new person who's like right there on my screen.
Wes, why don't you go and give an intro?
All right. Hi, Ben. Good to see you again, and thank you for allowing me into this hangout. So I work in Santa Ana, California, working with 21st century learning in schools K through 12. And I am really excited about some projects we have going on with project-based learning, problem-based learning, challenge-based learning, helping students solve global and local challenges. So excited to learn.
Great. Thank you for joining. Okay, cool. So hi, I'm excited. I'm really excited to get to know as many of you as I can through this process. I know it's going to be hard since it's such an awesome, huge group, but it's a great start today, and thank you to all of you for joining on the Hangout. So I had an idea about what entrepreneurship was growing up that was not very pretty, and certainly didn't interest me. If anything, it kind of repelled me. And don't worry, the end of I'll cut to the chase. The end of the story is that I come around, and I'm sort of a fan of entrepreneurship. But I remember thinking when I was younger that it was sort of a black and white world out there, and entrepreneurs were people that wanted to go build big businesses, wanted to make a lot of money from those businesses, and sort of hoard value, hoard resources, and maybe one day decide to give back. Obviously that wasn't the case, but I thought that because those were I had these images and these stories about entrepreneurship all around me that were very much about that, about a certain kind of business, a certain kind of entrepreneurship that made me feel alienated, made me feel certainly not qualified, and just really disinterested. I think obviously what I had absorbed for a while was a very narrow view of what entrepreneurship could be. But even after I graduated college, and I didn't study business, I studied philosophy and poetry and things that I loved. And entrepreneurship and business did not seem like something I would love at all. If anything, I think this is maybe interesting. I thought that, look, if business is bad, big businesses are bad, then entrepreneurs are like the worst because they are sort of the instigators of this stuff. So I just was not excited about it. However, fast forward a little bit. I moved to Silicon Valley. I get a temp job. My first job out of undergrad was as an administrative assistant at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, and I started to be exposed to social entrepreneurship. People who were thinking every day about, utilizing business skills and entrepreneurial thinking to address social problems. And I was won over. I mean, I kind of fell in love with the idea of social entrepreneurship. And since then, I started then to look for ways and opportunities to find my specific thing, the way that I could get involved in social entrepreneurship. Because, it's difficult to just say, I want to go be an entrepreneur. Oh, sorry, you heard that little ding. Did you hear the ding? I don't know if I should take a minute to turn off notifications. Okay, hold on. Do that. Hold on 1 sec. All right, I think I did it. Anyway, I started to look for my way, my thing, and I learned about microfinance. Oh, I was going to say, I think it's difficult to just have a desire to be an entrepreneur but not get specific very quickly. I meet a lot of wonderful, well-intentioned, often students at the college level who will come up to me after a talk or somehow interact with me and say, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I'll say, that's awesome. Who do you want to serve? What area of the world do you care about? What is the problem that you want to really focus on and create solutions to? And in short, a lot of students say, I don't know, I just want to be an entrepreneur. And I tell them that that's like saying, I want to go win a gold medal in the Olympics. I mean, I haven't chosen my sport yet, but I will at some point. But I'm going to do. So I feel like I knew, at least back then, I know it now too, but I really wanted to figure out specifically what I could do. I had that desire, but I didn't know where to focus at first. I learned about microfinance from a lecture that was given at Stanford Business School from Dr. Muhammad Yunus. It was one of these rare moments of inspiration that come in life, and I sort of felt utterly convinced that I needed to go figure that out. So I quit my job at Stanford, much to my parents' dismay, and I moved to East Africa and begged my way into an internship with a small nonprofit called Village Enterprise. It was an incredible experience. For 3 months, I was in East Africa on the ground, learning from amazing entrepreneurs that did so much with very, very little. A lot of them are actually profiled in my book that just came out a few months ago, which I hope many of you will check out. It tells a lot more about my story and my journey and what I think about entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. But anyway, while I was in East Africa, I became a changed person. I not only sort of opened my eyes to the power of entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, but I really started to believe that maybe I could really participate in a big way in doing something myself. I gained that confidence as I learned the basics of entrepreneurship from all these incredible people around me. And that's where the idea for Kiva was born. I, along with my co-founder Matt, started to think, hey, what if we stayed in touch with these new friends in East Africa? What if we left a camera here? What if we built a simple website where they could tell their stories, talk about what they were doing, and request a loan need, request loan funding, express a loan need to the world. And at first the world, by the way, was just our friends and family, but it was a fine place to start. Anyway, that was 10 years ago. Kiva's grown. I've been very privileged to get to do other things too, post-Kiva, which I left several years ago. I was there for the first few years and then started another organization, Cofounder, which did sort of early crowdfunding before crowdfunding was legal for investment capital in the U.S., focused on U.S. small businesses and entrepreneurs. And I've done other things since. But for me, this idea that there's two pieces here, right, with social entrepreneurship. I mean, you can live and work and really integrate this spirit of entrepreneurship into almost everything you do. That's infused my life with a purpose and a meaning that it didn't have before, and with a real passion. So that's part of what sort of I've experienced in the transformation that's taken place in my life over the last decade. But additionally, and that's more of a heart thing, I think, and perhaps more of an intellectual challenge, has been thinking through what models exist, what structures exist, but what sort of principles exist out there to really operate in a socially entrepreneurial way, to pursue this path of social entrepreneurship. So look, I am in it with you all. I'm learning as I go too. I have this last decade of experience, but I have many more to go, God willing, and I'm excited to share everything that I can about what I've learned so far, but also learn together and cheer you on in your journeys as well. So for me, that's kind of where I am in the journey. And over the last, I guess I'll just say this to bring you right up to the present. Over the last few years, I've been, and this is another thread of my story that I'm very happy to be open about and talk about, but I'm a mom of 3 little boys, twins that are 4 and a baby who's 9 months. And so my pursuits have become, designed around being a parent, the kind of parent, a present parent that I wanted to be. So I don't have currently a big thing associated with my work day to day, but I've had the book. I have been able to do wonderful things like this that aren't, constantly full-time for years on end. But I'm eager to build new things in the future. That's me. That's where I am right now. What do you think, Ben? How did I do? You know me.
Great.
What did I miss?
No, that was wonderful. I think if people want to learn more, they can take your course. But I think that's a good context to sort of set itself up. And, I think let's open it up to the participants. What questions do you have? Where are you in your journey? And Jessica, I'll let you answer with your normal gusto. So.
Thank you. So I guess I won't call on people. I'll just watch your mute. So we'll go for it.
Jessica, you spoke about people approaching you about saying they wanted to be an entrepreneur. I have students who come into my class and they say, I want to be a social entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do you direct them if they know they want to do that? I mean, what sort of path, what sort of education, what sort of experience do they need? A lot of them have a real fire in their hearts,
yeah,
but they don't really have a sense of they're sort of like what you were
Yeah.
when you got into this.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, so what I usually say is, okay, great. I'm never dismissive of that. I think that spirit and that desire is so awesome, and I'm sure you do too. I mean, you teach for a reason. You love seeing that, I'm sure. So I get really excited when people come up and have anything that they're passionate about. But when it's about that, this idea of being a social entrepreneur or being an entrepreneur, I'll say, great. You know the how. You know how you want to proceed and pursue work in your life. You know how you want to sort of be in the world, but you need to figure out the what and the why. I think for the what, right, I try to encourage people to kind of focus in on something that causes, for lack of a better way to explain this, an emotional sort of spike. So maybe there's something they are really passionate about, and they know that they just love working with kids. They care about the rights of children. They care about education for younger ages, something like that. Maybe they know the who. Maybe they know who they want to serve. Maybe the emotional spike for them comes not in a super positive way, but in they're just angry about something in the world. It really makes them mad that XYZ, that there are still problems with human trafficking in the world. There are still problems around. Maybe there's a problem out there that they're upset about. Maybe it's a smaller, subtler voice that they can remember that they heard in themselves or felt years earlier. I've met social entrepreneurs that say, yeah, I do know what I wanted to do, but I really reflected on my life, and I realized that I was really passionate, like in 5th grade, about whatever it is, right, about animals. And so I came back, I got too busy and I focused on other extracurricular things in high school and college, but I realized that's really what I love and care about. So I've decided to start this thing or go be a part of an organization, focused on that. So I think if you can help people, it's harder and harder, I think, to encourage and to, I'll speak for myself, to carve out creating time, I guess, to have reflection and quiet in my life. I think as instructors, as teachers, that's an incredible position to mandate that and to give people an excuse to have moments of reflection, to really look at their life. I mean, all of our stories are so rich with smaller stories, with ups and downs, with twists and turns and challenges and triumphs. I think all of us have an incredible story to tell. It may not seem incredible to you at all moments. It may seem mundane or pretty boring, but everyone has experienced things that have been meaningful to them in different ways. And there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, sorry, I know I'm giving a long answer here, but I'll just I think examples are helpful. I have a friend from Stanford Business School, and her essay was, the big essay question for Stanford is what matters most to you and why. And I remember she answered, it was about food. It was about having dinner parties, basically, like bringing people together through food. And she's continued to sort of work in that space post-business school for the last to date myself here, almost 10 years. So look, I don't think there's a right or wrong. I don't think there's a should. I don't think it's often very effective for people to try to solve their way into, well, where can I rationally make the largest impact? Look, the good and the bad news is there's a lot of work to do in the world. There's a lot that needs fixing. There's a lot that needs building. There's a lot that needs to be created and dreamed up. So I would hesitate to tell somebody anything that led them down a path of shoulds, like, well, you should just figure out where you'll make the most impact. I think where somebody will make the most impact is where they can have a sustained passion for something and dig in for a few years and say, yeah, I want to go figure out how to serve underemployed, women in the U.S., something like that, right? So here, let me check in. You can do quality control on my answers. Does that resonate a little bit with you? Because that's usually how I talk to my students. Oh, unmute yourself so I can hear you. Oh, can you unmute? Oh, he was on the phone. Sorry. No, it's cool. Totally. Can you unmute so I can hear? Did that help answer your question?
Oops.
You're fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yes, it did. I mean, it's clear that the students have, I think they think they have the why, but they think they don't have the how. That they don't know how do they get to what it is they want to do, and that's part of the thing is I'm afraid that in a course that all I can do is get them excited, but then sort of leave them not fully prepared to go out and do something. So it's a question of larger structure.
So I've always done in my courses, I taught at USC. I'm teaching again later this year. I'm really psyched about that. And then at Drew University. So whenever I teach a class live, I've never done this before, I often encourage students to go out and practice, like do small projects where they'll test an assumption or two and learn from that. So I mean, I'm sure you do this too. But I guess I'd also advise people who think they have some of those questions answered and they want to be entrepreneurial. I'd say, great. Figure out, and part of figuring out what you want to do, who you want to serve, what you want to solve is trial and error, getting out there and like spending time with the people you want to serve, getting out there and attempting to respond and engage and participate. So, I mean, that also I feel like gets you to some clarity pretty quickly.
Thanks for that first question. I think you had a question as well.
Yeah, so Jessica, I didn't mention this in my introduction, but I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and I actually work for the Peace Corps now. And so I think through that experience, I've learned that if you want to do maybe not the entrepreneurship side, but really that social side, you really need to build the trust of the social community you're working with, whether it's international or domestic. And I'm curious to know, in the specific cases of Kiva and the different work you're doing overseas, how you and your organization has really been able to build that trust and build those relationships that allow you to go in and do the work that you do in your different communities.
A really good, very insightful question, and thank you for the work that you're doing. That's awesome. To be super clear, by the way, I mean I am happy to talk about Kiva's work from the perspective of a founder. I'm not there day to day, so I always want to caveat what I say by noting that the website is always smarter than I am. You know, the staff there day to day are always more informed and smarter and up to date than I am on this stuff. So I'll tell you the best of what I understand and how sort of it started out and was designed. So at the very beginning, Kiva started with me in Uganda with my camera saying, oh my gosh, let's stay in touch with my new friends and spam my friends and family back in the US. And even though we don't know if it's legal or if it'll work or a lot of things, we'll try this out. We'll try this experiment and have, again, my friends and family lend $25 or more towards the people in Uganda. So that was not scalable or sustainable, and it was really fun, though, as a pilot round. So eventually, Kiva transitioned over that next year of kind of after we launched for real, transitioned to a model where Kiva works with experts on the ground. So there are 10,000, give or take a few hundred, depending on how you want to cut it, microfinance institutions or banks for the poor all over the world, right? Kiva works with a few hundred of those at any given time to allow them to sort of showcase the work that they're doing. So look, I think I'll do this right, you can see my hands. There are lenders, Kiva, the actual platform, microfinance institutions that are Kiva's partners, the field partners, and there's many other organizations there too now, like just some of them are NGOs or social enterprises that happen to have a lending product as well. You can go there if you'd like. But there's really cool innovative partnerships happening. And then the end borrowers. So lenders, Kiva, field partners, borrowers, 4 parts. Those latter two, the field partners and the borrowers, I mean, they exist in the world with or without Kiva. Kiva really exists at all because we can work with those experts on the ground that know their communities, know how to find and vet different borrowers, know how to train them in their local language, and considering cultures and customs there. They are the ones that actually do the work of maybe handing the cash or buying the capital equipment that loan is funded and getting that into the hands of the person, the recipient, the end borrower. They do all that work on the ground, administering loans, collecting repayments, troubleshooting when that comes up, everything. So Kiva, while the desire has always been to bring the lender and the borrower as close as possible, the classic Kiva model has always included being led by and kind of deferring to expertise on the ground. So that's, I feel like, the way to do it. They're also an incredible, I want to say, how many dozen? 3-4 dozen-ish, again, check the website, staff that just focus on microfinance and field partnerships, relationships. So they'll travel frequently to visit those field partners. They'll work with borrowers on the ground as well and do all that they can to be great ambassadors and a great connection. But in the end, the real work on the ground is possible because of these often pre-existing field partners. I wanted to say something. Oh, so that's Kiva Classic, if you will. That's just my language. Kiva Zip is sort of a newer, I don't know, raise your hands on the you 7. Never know about Kiva Zip? Yeah? No. Totally fine if you don't. Okay, great. Then I'll tell you. I won't be boring you. So Kiva Zip is, over the last few years, it's sort of been a newer model that they've pioneered, and I think it's super exciting, and the way that things are going more and more as technology enables this. But Kiva Zip basically replaces that field partner with an ambassador, like a trustee. That's the correct language. That's what's used on the site, with a trustee. So imagine, and it's not everywhere. It's in the U.S., it's in East Africa a little bit, but imagine if I need a loan. Instead of working through a microfinance institution per se, I might work with another organization or individuals that could serve as trustees and say, yeah, Jessica's good for it, she's trustworthy, it's fine. I'll be kind of the accountability partner in the mix here. And so I might have a profile up there where, you know, my trustee will kind of make sure things are going well for me, but in the end, it's a much more direct connection that doesn't go through a microfinance institution to get to the borrower. Is this good? I think it's super interesting, and it is good in certain circumstances. I think there's so much value added by those field partners that in a lot of regions of the world, with a lot of individuals that, you know, might be just very new to, it might be their first loan. They may never have thought of themselves as entrepreneurs. There are a lot of reasons why sticking with field partners in certain situations is a great thing too. So we'll see where that goes on the site. But did that answer your question?
So can I ask the next question, or
Yeah.
are we going to go in a different order?
Right.
Yeah. And so I didn't really say a lot of things in the intro, but I'm in a startup. The name of my startup is RyanandRobbie.com. That's what we have right now. We're creating a language club. And I sort of got into this startup world a little bit in a funny way. So I, like you, have 3 sons. I have 3 young sons.
It's an elite club.
Yeah.
You know us by our gray hair, right?
Oh, yeah. And our tired eyes, I guess. But anyway, so earlier in my career, I was in the high tech industry. So I'd worked at Apple. I worked on the iPod back in about 2003, and then I worked at Microsoft on Microsoft Surface. And I started writing this book series called Ryan and Robbie, based on my kids, to help them deal with social identity. And then from there, I just started working more and got into language learning when I went on a book tour with Barnes & Noble in Hawaii. And so as I look at this language learning platform that we're building, I started thinking about, wow, you know, these communities beyond the U.S., beyond the immersion school, once we get outside of this beachhead market, these broader communities, they don't have a lot of the access to not just technology, but the services, the infrastructure, even basic things like food. And so when I saw you're giving this class, I said, wow, okay, that's great. You know, she went and founded Kiva.org. They help all these people all around the world. That's something I need to learn about. And so I was really eager to hear you give your perspective around how do you take sort of that broader, holistic view when you're looking at doing something like social entrepreneurship versus just something like a for-profit startup, which we kind of are, but we're also looking at there's just huge opportunity to actually have an impact as well.
Yeah, totally. Great question, and congratulations on all you're doing.
Thank you.
So, I guess, look, I actually am kind of agnostic when it comes to how to do good stuff in the world. Like, I don't think you have to start a nonprofit. I don't think that's always the best thing. I don't think you have to have a sustainable, aka profitable, for-profit or social enterprise or B Corp or something in the middle. I think a lot of different structures can help you get done what you want to get done in the world. And I think that's the main question to ask, and that's where you can really tell what somebody's or an organization's, some organizations' priorities are. So you can want to do good in the world, and that may be way down on your list, and you can tell by an organization's decision making that that's the case, despite potential, perhaps out and out claims to the contrary. So I think it's going to be really interesting over coming years as these lines blur even more. I think maybe I shouldn't say, well, anyway, I'll just throw it out there because this is what's genuinely on my mind. Who of the people that I can see watching have you seen Silicon Valley? It's so funny, that TV show. All right, so there's this like montage. There's this funny scene. Sorry, I'm just gonna go here. I already started down this path, but they make a joke about like there's a fake sort of TechCrunch scene, and they make a joke about all these startups that are making the world a better place by blah blah blah. It's so funny. because they'll be like making the world a better place by, and then it'll be something kind of totally unrelated, like faster processing, or, hardware, whatever. And so I think there'll be more claims from everyone, more and more, to be that they're socially responsible, that they have a social impact involved in what they're doing, that they are genuinely committed to social change. It's going to be tough to tell who's really in it in a genuine way and who's really prioritizing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I think I don't want to just start preaching about all the trends that I think are going to happen in social entrepreneurship over coming years, but I guess I feel like as you asked in a very personal way, like as you think about what you want to get done and what matters to you, I think listing a lot of different values is one thing, and a lot of people get that far, but you have to prioritize, or else it doesn't really matter, to be honest, because you may want to do 10 different great things for the world and also have 10 other sort of neutral or potentially negative other corporate kind of goals. But if you don't say, look, we're always going to value this above this when push comes to shove, I think you can very quickly and easily get lost in a lot of different competing dynamics and decisions as you're pulled in all directions through the entrepreneurial journey. So I can pause there, but let me see if I want to say one or two more things about kind of social entrepreneurship generally. I mean, I think it'll be interesting. I think that as people get more, as consumers get more educated, they'll want to find the genuine, the real deal, the really truly committed organizations to having a positive impact. They'll want to understand exactly what's behind the sentence or the quick bullet point sort of summary of corporate social responsibility programs. Like, okay, great. So for every one that you buy, what happens exactly, and what percentage do you keep actually, and what I think people are going to want to peel back the layers and understand more to the story, not just the headline. And really, I don't know that there'll ever be a really easy way to compare all different sort of organizations, apples to oranges to bananas to whatever else, to each other and have one metric that shows you which are the really good organizations. I think it'll become more and more of a, there'll be so many ways to measure, so many things to ask and think about out there. It'll become more difficult, but I think consumers are becoming more and more savvy about it. And so perhaps through their voice, and not just consumers, but just any kind of contributors, donors, anything, through what they demand and how they spend their time and energy and where they put their resources, I think the more important metrics should rise to the top. We'll see. Anyway, don't get me started.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Yeah. Because really, we know what we're doing. We're really going after the literacy problem that we see for really young kids, 0 to 6, and that want to have this entry into the global marketplace when they grow up. And so that's what our platform's all about. But what we're seeing as we look out beyond our initial U.S. horizon is that we're seeing that there's this global marketplace. And the global marketplace is vastly different than the U.S. marketplace. Very similar to what you were talking about with your time in Uganda. There are these children who yes, they want to be able to participate in the global marketplace when they grow up, but they need to be able to eat first. They need to be able to have a safe home. They need to have safe water and those sorts of things. And so some of those things go beyond sort of what a traditional startup like we are can do. But we see that these are problems that we need to look at the community and see, is there a way for us to help participate? Is there a way for us to find partnerships? Is there a way for us to be integrated into an overall solution? And I wanted to hear more of how can we kind of think about ways to get our foot in the door with some of these other organizations who 100% maybe are nonprofits, or 100% maybe they're universities, or some other focus, but they're all trying to help and all trying to do the same types of good things.
It probably wouldn't be too useful. I totally hear you. It probably wouldn't be too useful for me to try to give advice generally on like how to reach out to different potential partners. I feel like that is probably not the best use of our time, because I think every organization is going to be different. It's going to be driven by different incentives. I think if you have donors that want to help contribute and grow the reach of a particular organization that's doing good work in the world, they'll be very receptive to that. But I guess I think I'd actually warn against something that you bring up. There's always more to do. There's always, no matter how holistic your program even might be. And if you're a nonprofit that focuses on really holistic improvement of a community, there's still going to be other things that creep in that are not on your list, again, of priorities. And so I would actually say the most effective organizations are focused ones. So know what you do, know what you don't. Of course, if you're in an area and you're like, look, this is just not working, what we're doing can't work unless our students eat breakfast every day. If you feel drawn to solving that problem instead or first, God bless you. That's fantastic. But I guess you could one other way of approaching that would be, look, I know that I'm best at creating this program in the world. I'm not going to be as effective trying to figure out a way to feed these hungry children, unfortunately. So I'm going to focus on this, or for whatever reasons you decide to focus on what you're doing, and then you just say, look, we're only going to work in communities where we can make sure these prerequisites exist. That sounds super harsh. And maybe, again, it's all priorities.Maybe you say, no, we're dedicated to this community. We're going to figure it out. We're going to actually pause development on this other stuff until we solve this problem first for them, because it's in the hierarchy of their needs, it's more important. So I think you have choices, but I guess I would warn against trying to do everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah.
I would like to make the next question.
Hey, straight from Colombia. Hi.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for all your answers. That make a lot of things clear for me, really.
Okay.
So my question is this one. I'm building, as I said before, this startup that's about making random acts of kindness in the world. And I made it like a demo, and it started working and getting a lot of press releases and this kind of stuff. So I realized I needed other people to work with, so I can actually make it bigger and wider. I decided to make a call for participants. So whenever anyone that wanted to join me on doing this project will be able to work with me. The question here is, how do I keep these people motivated in order to keep working on the startup? How do I manage to keep this motivation going, besides from saying, yes, we are making the world better, we're making the change, but I feel like they need something more, something more of motivations. Do you have any advice on this?
Yeah. So I think it's, again, congratulations on what you're doing, and I'm so glad you joined the call today. I think generally you can actually learn a lot by asking people directly what motivates them. And I mean, it sounds so silly and obvious, but people are all motivated by slightly different things, and different currencies, right? Different incentives, I guess, matter at different levels to each one of us. So there are some general things I guess I could recommend, but I think having personal, as direct of a conversation as you can with the people that really are, the hands and feet of your organization, making this thing go every day and that you rely on so much. I think when you can be very personal, very focused on, if you have a 5-minute conversation with one person versus, think what it means if you call a specific individual and say, hey, thank you for doing what you're doing. What's your favorite part about what you do? What really drives you? What have you found most inspiring over the last month? What's been your favorite moment? Learn a little bit, take some notes, and make sure that you feed that person those things. It's probably going to be something like, I had this wonderful interaction with somebody, I had this lovely conversation with one of our, the recipients of this act of kindness. Figure out a way, if you can, to then kind of systematize something like that. Maybe you highlight one of your volunteers every week and you have them tell their favorite story of change. Maybe you find, there's so many ways you can go with this, right? But if you think about that personal phone call for a few minutes versus, it depends on, how many people you're talking about. If you have thousands and thousands, it might be a little more difficult. You could probably figure it out, though, and probably delegate, right? And have at least somebody call somebody else and go down the chain and kind of delegate that. But anyway, if somebody called me on a regular basis and said, I'm so thankful for what you're doing, how are you feeling? Are you feeling energized? If not, what can we do? What do you think? Just knowing that I was cared about that personally, that alone would go a long way. But it's very different to reach out individually and care for people in a very specific one-on-one kind of way versus spamming your volunteer list of a few dozen people and saying, hey, thanks, everyone, really appreciate it. You can feel kind of lost in the shuffle and lost in the crowd there. Anyway, that's in an ideal world what I would do.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. Very clever. Thank you. Yes.
So who's on the end? Is that Wes? Wes, do you have any questions? I'm cold calling. See, I'm like the mean cold calling professor. I mean, I just gave myself that title, by the way.
Let's just warn the future learners, you won't be doing that in the course.
I know, but so I'm getting it out of my system now.
I guess it's really interesting to hear all the different stories and perspectives and experiences people have had. As somebody charged with, like, we have 50,000 young people in our district, what are some key experiences that you think we could give students that they may not get, like when you traditionally picture traditional school? What are some easy experiences you think we could provide students that would help open their eyes to these kinds of ways of looking at the world?
So do you mean, and tell me the age of your students again?
It was from kindergarten to 12th grade.
I mean, look, I think there are skills that can be learned that, obviously are going to translate and apply in many different scenarios. And I feel like one, I talked about reflection, like having an internal dialogue that's strong and clear, and having an inner sort of compass. I think anytime you can provide an excuse for students to reflect and know themselves that way, and to understand what's important to them, it's a big deal and a good thing. I think anything you can do to build empathy among students, between students, is a really big deal. My little boys go to a little preschool. It's so cute. And they have a mentorship program, so like the second graders hang with the preschoolers. It's sort of the best thing ever. I mean, it's adorable. So I actually don't know. I'm just getting into this game, right? My kids are in preschool, so I don't know how widespread that is throughout schools across the U.S. at least. But I think little things like that, where you can allow kids to be, and allow students of all ages to be praised and appreciated based on how well they're really deeply understanding another person, not just by, by really kind of digging in and making, having like a long-term exposure to another person, like over the course of the year, right? Sustained interactions. I think that's a really good thing. And that might sound random. How does that lead to social entrepreneurship? Well, I mean, the first question that was asked, right, by a real professor, was about where do you start with people who want to be a social entrepreneur, want to be an entrepreneur? I think having a deep understanding of the people you want to serve is the only way to really build something. It's the best way, I would say that, to build something effective in the world, instead of just kind of guessing at what somebody else wants or needs and then seeing if it sticks. So those are the two things that come to mind initially. Does that resonate? Does that sound helpful at all?
Yeah, that's very, very good. I appreciate a very thoughtful answer. Thank you.
Cool. Also art and music, but I'll just put that out there.
Can I offer an observation?
Observation?
Yeah. I come from a school where both my kids as well as the people at the university, they come from more of a position of privilege, so that when they're looking to experience it, a lot of it is to go out and actually deal with the people who don't have the privilege that they have, and that direct experience, I think, is we found to be very helpful. For instance, my daughter did a program. She went to Ecuador and she experienced the people, and when she came back, she said, "Dad, these people don't need charity; they need business. They need something to sustain them." And she came up with an idea for actually manufacturing soap in a very poor village, and it was a way of actually converting this sort of exposure to the other side of life into a sustainable operation for them. So a lot of it, I think, is just confronting reality that's different from your own, is what we found.
I love that answer. Yeah, and teaching people to be uncomfortable and push their own boundaries about, getting closer and understanding a person who at initial, at first impression, seems very, very different from them. It's really
great. I did want to take some time to field a few questions from our YouTube population and our Twitterverse. There's one student, or one person, Hamid, who says, he's a really great idea. He sort of has his business plan. He's done his market research, but he's resource strapped, and
Okay.
He doesn't actually know what a good next step is or good first step.
Yep. So without knowing the specifics, I mean, look, this is one of my favorite questions and favorite issues. That again, I'm just put it out there because I worked for years on it and I feel like it's useful. I mean, the book that I wrote is about doing the most with the least. There are stories after this, all these stories about entrepreneurs who didn't have what they thought they needed, but they found a way anyway. And so if I don't know what resources, I'm assuming financial resources is what he's talking about. But I guess I would say, look, you can test and learn often for very little money. You don't need to go from 0 to 60, from idea to full production of a thing and then see if it sells. Or again, I'm not sure what his business is, so it's hard to make specific references to it. But I think there are ways to test and learn in an incremental way. Just do the next step that you can. I think if you can't create anything, if you have no money and you really would need that to be able to build a physical, real thing that you eventually want to use to serve somebody else or to add value to their lives, then have 100 conversations with people. That's a free thing you can do, right? Get really in-depth data and an understanding of what they really, really want, and use that to glean different insights and make observations that become an asset. Like create your own assets, right? If actually, like if I don't know, that would be one thing that I guess I would say generally. If that person continues to really feel incredibly stuck, even though again, if it's financial resources that we're talking about, think past that and think about the thing itself, the things themselves that you might need. Is it you need money to pay staff? Figure out how to inspire them in other ways. Again, we've talked about incentives and currencies, and people value different things. Some people just want to be in at the ground level on a fun new idea. So thank you. Have a safe trip to the airport. I hope you make your flight. So anyway, I think there are ways to get to the thing itself. So if it's to pay staff, there's a way to at least begin relationships with people that can start to help you out by providing other incentives. If it's so one of the stories in the book is this wonderful woman, Cece, who I worked with at Cofounder. She was one of our customers who used the product that we created to sort of do a do-it-yourself crowdfunding round of investment capital for her business. At one point, I think I'm getting the numbers right, among the many things that she had listed on her budget, she needed a boat. She had a tour business where she would take people out around Southern California off the coast and do whale watching tours. I mean, she still does today. But she needed money to buy a boat, and I want to say that it was either $60,000 or $90,000, something very expensive. It was like the majority of her budget. So she listed out her needs, her budget needs, and shared those needs with people that she hoped would provide this capital. She wasn't getting the response that she initially had wanted in terms of capital pledges, in terms of investments, but somebody saw that she needed this boat, and apparently it was supposed to cost this much, but they had seen, their laundromat or something, that somebody was selling this same boat, and it was for, a small fraction of the cost that Cece thought she'd need to spend on it. So she was able to do everything. She ended up having what she needed. She had enough money to go buy the things she needed because somebody knew the specific need. So, yeah, it's one of my favorite questions. I hope that, those examples and that general advice is helpful.
I'd love to add a point as an entrepreneur, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I went to write my first children's book, I wanted to write it for my kids. I got on my Mac and I just started writing it in my word processor, and I took that first step. And so after taking that first step, then I started thinking, well, how the heck do I do this? I started thinking about all the products I built before when I was at Apple and other places, and I said, I got to have a team. And so I started talking to people, and I built up a team. And I say that's kind of what you're saying is you get started, you get the story rolling, and then you just kind of build it from there. That first step is really the thing that kind of gets the momentum going.
Yep. Well said. We have 10 more minutes. Do you have other questions?
I have one more from our YouTube world. Is that okay, Jessica?
Great.
It's it's related to funding as well. Natalie Walker wanted to know what are the differences or maybe challenges in raising capital for social enterprise versus maybe a traditional startup.
I guess the first thing that honestly comes to mind is I think the question should be phrased, if I may, what are the opportunities? again, I think if you are a social entrepreneur today, and if this is a path that you see for yourself, you're going to be ahead of the curve. I think more and more, every business is every enterprise is going to have to answer to questions about social impact, because there's always some impact. It's just, is it positive or neutral or negative, and in what ways? So to be able to get out front of that and to be able to say, look, here's what I'm going to do, here's the social impact that exists. If it is, again, a sustainable sort of, whether it's for-profit or not, but if you are raising actual investment capital with potential financial upside as well as a social impact, then I think you have a huge advantage in being able to articulate that and say, not only will this be profitable for the following reasons, here's my plan, here are my assumptions, but in addition, I'm going to do all this good in the world. Specifically, I mean, to go raise that capital, there are different, I could list off, you could search for this, and I'm sure you probably have, but there are different funders at different times that are pretty well known for supporting social entrepreneurs. Sometimes it's through a donation, sometimes it is through an investment, but in my experience, it's all about the individuals that you can bring around you to support the thing that you want to do and to participate in the story that you're creating in the world, to participate in getting closer to that vision that you see for the future that's better than the way things are now. So I don't think listing specific entities would be the most helpful. I think talking about that one-on-one individual relationship building process is the best thing that I can give you as my answer. One of the best pieces of advice that I ever got about fundraising was from a very wealthy individual who, has given, I've seen single grants to institutions over $150 million. And this individual is incredibly successful in business and is incredibly philanthropic and generous. And he told me that, if you ask for money, you probably just get an earful, right? You don't just go into a relationship with somebody after their funds, after their pocketbook, so to speak. And he said, if you ask for money, you'll just get advice. But if you ask for advice, you might end up getting some money. So what he's saying through that is you want to engage people above and beyond just contributing financially. So if you have a great story to tell about the social impact you're creating, if you have an inspiring and compelling mission, then you have a huge advantage. Share that with people. Ask them to participate, not just financially, but to really be a part of the movement, the mission, the thing that you want to go do. And now, whether that's a formal advisory role or a board, seat or whatever it is, that matters a lot less than just opening the door to them and saying, look, I value, and you have to be genuine about it. So it might mean that it's a smaller set of people that you go to at first, that you know and that you understand, or that you've seen do something wonderful in the world that you think could inform what you want to do in the world. So I would say, if you go to a person and say, look, I admire that you've done this and this and this in the world, or that you're this way with people, or you seem to have really good insights on whatever, go and have a specific thing that you're excited to learn from them or ask of them. And then beyond that, yes, if they want to also buy in quite literally and contribute financially and literally invest in what you're doing, then I think the chances are much higher that they'll do it, and it'll be a more genuine, authentic, kind of multifaceted connection you've built.
Great. Jessica, on behalf of Philanthropy University, I just wanted to thank you for your time and interacting with sort of these global leaders and entrepreneurs. And I think what is really great is that this is such a good representative sample of what's to come in your course. And imagine the thousands of aspiring entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs who will be in your course brainstorming and trying to solve, as you put it, like real problems. For those who have not registered yet out there in the YouTube world, you can still do that, philanthropyu.org. To Juan, to Roger, to Peter, to Wes, to Kat, who had to drop out briefly or early, we thank you guys, and we are tremendously grateful for your stories. Jessica, do you want to sort of do a farewell, a goodbye?
I'm nodding at everything you're saying. I feel again. I genuinely believe that if we could theoretically have every one of the tens of thousands of participants contribute something to the class, stand up and give a 5-minute lecture, I get it. It would take too long. I would be all ears. I know that there's so much that each one of you has to offer, and I just feel very privileged that I get to be a part of what you're pursuing. And my pledge to you is that I will give you the best of what I have experienced and know and understand to be true in the world, and I'll share that openly with you. I'm really eager to see how this unfolds. This is new for me too, so thank you for learning with me as we go along. I feel very honored to get to do this with you. So thank you.
Well, thanks for joining, everyone, and everyone in the YouTube world. The video will be available online even after this goes off. So thank you from Philanthropy University.
Great.